You're watching LMCC, your community TV.
Hello and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Kay Erickson with the League of Women Voters of South Tonka, and today we're talking about teens at risk of exploitation and sex trafficking. It's another in our series of programs exploring the issues that teens in our western suburbs are dealing with. And while we may not think that these issues are going on out here, the reality is that exploitation and sex trafficking know no boundaries. We have teenagers in our area who are vulnerable because of a variety of things. They may lack housing, or they may be dealing with abusive situations at home, or just general anxiety about the things that are going on in their lives. And when teenagers lack support systems to deal with these issues, they can become vulnerable. With me today is Peg DuBord, president of the South Tonka League, and together we're going to be talking to two people familiar with these issues. Cora Burns is a Safe Harbors Supportive Services Manager with an organization called The Link. And then in the second part of the program, we're going to be joined by Symmieona Williams, who's a member of the Link's Survivor Advisory Committee. Welcome, Cora. Welcome, Peg. Let's begin with an understanding of exploitation and sex trafficking. Can you explain to our audience what exploitation is?
Sure. Exploitation is anytime a young person or adult engages in any sort of sexual activity for exchange of anything of value. So if they're experiencing homelessness and need a place to stay, and exchange any sort of sexual activity for a place to stay, that would be exploitation.
Okay. And then sex trafficking?
Trafficking is when a third party is involved. So that would be when the pimp is actually selling the young person for exchange of anything of value. Again, that could be a place to stay, that could be money, or even something as small as an increased level of gang affiliation. So the level of gang activity that they're in.
Okay.
So what are some of the signs that you might look for when, we have an audience that's really trying to understand this topic? And what are some of the things that this audience might be looking for relative to a person who might be involved in exploitation or trafficking?
Sure. Especially with young people, that the main signs you're going to see are changes in behavior. So if they're typically involved in sports and they're engaged with a typical group of people that they like to hang out with, and then all of a sudden that changes and they're hanging out with a different group of kids, not engaged in their school activities, not engaged in their sporting activities. It could be as simple as change of the way they look, whether that's increased makeup or things that they're wearing, or it could be the opposite of looking a little bit more raggedy or wearing things that seem to be loose fitting because they're hiding some marks on their bodies. There can be lots of different signs to look for. Really engaged in their phone, not engaging with the adults in their life that they have been really engaged with before in their life. There can be several more, but those would probably be the main signs to look for.
So when someone presents like this, so do teachers typically report this, or do parents, or do caregivers, or
Sure.
How does all that work?
That is a very broad spectrum. We would hope that teachers are engaging and recognize the signs in the classroom. A lot of our referrals come from county sources, so it could be someone that's already been involved in the child protection system. It could be someone that's involved in some sort of county referral, not necessarily always child protection, but that would be one of our main sources for referral. Part of Safe Harbor in our initiative, which we'll get to later, the No Wrong Door initiative, is to really increase awareness. So our team at the Link are doing more services and providing trainings to teachers and to schools and to health organizations to become more aware of the signs and what to look for and how to direct them to our services.
I'm assuming like physicians are getting
physicians
training.
Yep. So that's one of the biggest initiatives right now is the healthcare system. So we're trying to get into nurses when they have their professional development days where they all come together as a group, where the Link will come in and do a training.
Okay, great.
Who's most at risk of being a victim of trafficking or exploitation?
Sure. That is a very broad question because most people think that it's a niche population, or it's people that are living in poverty, or that it's people of color only. That's a very stigmatized idea of what or who the population is that's being trafficked or that are victims or susceptible to being a victim. It's anybody that's honestly on social media that is looking and seeing, the things that are happening over social media. Snapchats, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things are very interesting avenues for a trafficker to get a hold of a young person. A good example of that is, when you're 15 to 16 to 17 years old and you're figuring out what your body is doing and you're attracted to people and then someone's reaching out to you via these social media avenues, that can be a really scary thing for someone that's a predator or someone that's looking to be engaging in trafficking with a young person.
Well, that really is, scary to kind of understand how that social media is so reactive for young people. So, we're out here in the western suburbs, just thinking everything's hunky-dory.
This beautiful landscape.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how you see trafficking happening in the city versus what happens in the suburbs.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes of what I was saying earlier, that people think it's just this niche population, the north side of Minneapolis or, St. Paul or the confines of the city. But in reality, it's everywhere. It's in rural areas, it's in northern Minnesota, it's in southern Minnesota, it's in the city, and it's in your neighborhood right here. That's a scary thing to think of, and I'm not trying to be here to scare people or to think that just because your daughter or your son is lashing out and isn't following the rules that they're being trafficked. That certainly isn't the case. But we're here to engage, and we're here to tell you, that there are some very specific signs to look for, and we're here to help in those cases.
How are young people targeted? We talk about, especially out here, what might it look like for a young person to be targeted by a predator of some kind?
Sure, like the vulnerability.
Yeah, what are some of the ways and places that they see young people who might be vulnerable?
Sure. I think out in the suburbs or in the confines of the suburbs, it really is someone that, again, like I said, what the signs to look for is someone that's disengaging from their normal activity, someone that might be, experiencing mental health issues, that's going through some depression. I know it sounds cliche, but, girls that are boy crazy and want to engage with all these different types of guys and really interested in seeing what that might feel like. It's a healthy thing, it's a normal thing, it's part of development, but it's a scary thing with social media and the things that are happening that can actually deter them or put them into the wrong direction, into the wrong hands, into the wrong people. So really keeping an eye on your young person's phone. If they're really engaged in their phone and they're obsessed, which is also a really interesting thing because all young people are. I mean, I'm only in my 30s and I'm attached to my phone. Imagine what it's like to have never grown up without social media, without a device. And so it's a sign to look for, but you also have to be careful with what you're looking for. So
is there a specific grooming process that happens with young people? I guess that's one of the awarenesses I've come to from our conversations, and maybe you could share that a little bit.
Sure. Some of the grooming or what the grooming process looks like is the trafficker will typically spend a very significant amount of time with this young person, engaging in as if they are in love or they're their boyfriend or they are someone that is of value to them. Like, I will take you out to dinner, whether that's, for young people living in the inner city, like Red Lobster is a big deal, or going to, Olive Garden is even a big deal. So bringing them out to those fancy dinners, or for someone out here, it might be a new Coach purse. It might be getting your nails done on a regular basis. And that just gets them to the space of building trust. And then all of a sudden that kind of snowballs into, well, now we've built this trust, and now, hey, baby, or whoever they might call them, now you're going to engage in this because I love you, and that's what we're going to do to be in love, and that's how we're going to have this relationship.
And then, so how does a third party work into this situation?
Sure. So the third party exploitation the exploitation piece is actually what I just explained. So that's like him or her. There's, this exploitation trafficking also doesn't hold a gender. So there's female pimps, there's male pimps, there's female victims, there's male victims. It's very prevalent within the LGBTQ community. So within that, exploitation is what the trafficker is engaging in that grooming process. If there's some sort of exchange of a coach purse and she or he engages in some sort of sexual activity, that's the exploitation. Once it becomes trafficking is when he asks a third party to come in and engage in sexual activity outside of that person. And I don't mean to keep saying he, the trafficker asks the other young person to engage in some sort of sexual activity in benefit of his profit or her profit.
Okay. Now, if people see evidence of some of these things happening, a young person who's really young with somebody, I mean, I don't know what that part of it happens, but, or, other instances of, oh, this doesn't look quite right. What should people do? What can they do to help?
Well, we're always here, 100%. I think if anyone is in imminent danger, for sure, call 911.
Okay.
But the first thing you can 100% do is call our navigator line, which is a 24-hour crisis line that gets answered as part of our supportive services team within the link, within the Safe Harbor division. Like I said, it gets answered 24/7, whether that's a young person themselves calling just to reach out for services, or it could be a school social worker, a teacher, or a parent I'm seeing some signs that I've learned about from a training that I did with the link, and I'd like to talk more about it. And what we can do is go out and meet with the parent and the young person and kind of sit down and talk about, what your risky behaviors are and how these might be signs of trafficking, or what you're doing and engaging in these activities that might get you down that path. Sometimes for young people, and a lot of times actually, they don't want to talk to their parents, and that's a scary thing, but it's also, that's why we're here. We can come and sit down and say, I know you probably don't want to talk to your mom about that you're attracted to a 25-year-old, or that you've been engaging in, Snapchat conversations with someone that's much too old for your age group. So we can come in with a non-judgmental approach, a harm reduction approach, a trauma-informed approach, and say, we're not judging you, and here are some things that we can do to get you out of this.
And I think it's really important to kind of understand that no wrong door concept.
Right.
That in the past, people who engaged in this kind of behavior were criminalized.
Yeah.
And now with the Safe Harbor law, that is negated.
Exactly. Yep. So they're directed to services instead of being criminalized. Absolutely.
Cora, we've already started talking a little bit about some of the things the link does. Can we backtrack a little bit? Can you talk about the link and what the services you provide, and a little bit about your job?
Sure, absolutely. So the Link is a nonprofit based out of the north side of Minneapolis. It was actually founded by Jim Marshall and Oscar Reed, who are former football players of the Minnesota Vikings. They recognized a need for services for young people based out of the north side of Minneapolis at that time. But then now the Link has grown into a 19-program nonprofit with 3 different divisions, Safe Harbor being one of them. So the Safe Harbor division has a shelter in Prior Lake with 6 shelter beds and 5 housing units. In my position in particular, I'm the supportive services program manager, so I oversee the supportive services within the Safe Harbor division. Back in 2014, the Safe Harbor law was passed, decriminalizing young people that were victims of exploitation and trafficking. So basically it took that, we don't use this word in our work, but it took the prostitution out of the language when it involved a young person. Safe Harbor for All is in legislation right now, so that is a possibility that it will get passed for anybody that's picked up for the P word. Will not be criminalized, they will actually be directed to services like the Link instead of being prosecuted.
And then part of your organization, the Link, contracts with the State Department of Health.
Correct, yep.
And there's other areas that do the same kind of thing.
Yep.
In other areas of the state. So
Correct.
This is a statewide
Yes.
process.
So DHS is kind of the owner of the funding. They're a grant manager. So they trickle down all the money to people that do an RFP or a grant report to ask for the Safe Harbor funding. There's, and including that is our West Metro Regional Navigator, and there, I believe, I'm gonna butcher this, but I believe there are 9 navigators throughout the state of Minnesota. So each region receives a navigator, and basically the job of the navigator is exactly how it's said, is to navigate the system for young people that reach out to their service, whether that's finding shelter, finding safety, family reunification, basically navigating the system to find services.
And I think that's really important because I think the no wrong door means that if you come in, you will try to assess what the needs are and try to figure out how to help that person navigate through the system, which is important, I think, because people sometimes struggle with, well, I know that there's this problem and I know there might be exploitation or trafficking involved, but what next? You know, and how do I go about helping someone or directing someone to, you know, where help can be sought? So.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the biggest initiatives of the regional navigator's role is to build awareness and do training. So they no longer hold a caseload, which they used to hold a caseload of young people, and now they've actually changed the language of the navigator role to be more of community outreach and doing trainings and engaging with stakeholders of Safe Harbor. So the message is sent appropriately and correctly.
So if a call comes in saying that somebody suspects something about sex trafficking, you would be the first call for help. So who would answer that call and start the process?
For the link in particular, it's someone from my team. So it'd either be our West Metro Regional Navigator, our aftercare and outreach worker, myself, or our mobile case manager. So it rotates between 4 people.
And you're available 24/7?
24/7.
Wow, that's really important.
That's why we're building capacity and want to add more people for lack of burnout, so they're not answering that phone on quite a regular basis, and they get some time for themselves and some self-care. So
It seems like the Safe Harbor law itself would have completely changed the paradigm around dealing with these issues for law enforcement.
Yes, absolutely.
I assume you've noticed some changes. What have you noticed that's changed with this new definition and how you work with law enforcement?
You know, it's actually been a breath of fresh air. I think, I mean, there's always going to be struggles, whether, and not just with law enforcement, with any sort of stakeholder of Safe Harbor. It's a very niche population that sometimes it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. You know, when you're talking about sex and you're talking about engaging in sex, like the typical brain goes to, that's your own will and you're doing it out of your own space, and then that P word comes in and that's their own prerogative, and that's what they're doing for themselves, which, as we know in Safe Harbor and with the link, that's not the case. So it's been very interesting to see in Safe Harbor and building capacity with law enforcement, our shelters right there in their community. So, you know, they come by and just will maybe hang out in our parking lot for a little bit, just so our young people feel safe, and maybe pop in and say hi to the young people and just say, you know, we're a safe space and we're a safe person, because there is a lot of stigma around law enforcement, and you know, the recent activities and the recent news has been really difficult for especially people of color. So building capacity and building upon the positive ends of things and kind of growing up and building upon that has been super beneficial.
And I know you don't want to use the word prostitution, but you know, changing the concept out in the community of what is actually happening and getting rid of that word and helping people understand about that. This is, like you said, this is not necessarily a willful, this is what I want to do. And so, and, you know, congrats to the, you know, the amount of training that you can get done, because I think what Kay and I try to do with these series too is really help build awareness about, you know, what is the new paradigm, what is the new, what are the new strategies, and how are the new ways that we can help people avoid this very awful, you know, kind of thing that happens in their life.
And thank you for taking this on. It's not an easy topic to talk about.
No, but it's important, and I think so many issues out here, as we said before, they tend to be invisible sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are issues out here that we need to deal with out front. So thank you both. Now it's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about exploitation and trafficking.
Check out LMCC on Facebook. Be sure to like and friend us so you can keep up with all the happenings or to watch one of your favorite videos.
Welcome back to Talking Points. I'm Kay Erickson with the League of Women Voters of South Tonka. In this segment of the program, Peg DuBord, president of the South Tonka League, and I are going to continue our conversation with Cora Burns with the Link. We're going to be joined by Symmieona Williams, who's a member of the Link's Survivor Advisory Committee. Symmieona, thank you for joining us today. We understand that you're a member of the Link's Survivor Advisory Committee. Can you tell us about your role in that committee?
Well, yeah, my boss, Beth Hoger, she actually came up with this idea to where, you know, we want people who have been through sexual exploitation or have been trafficked So, you know, they were telling me about this. Well, I heard from a friend, they were telling me about this job, and she was saying, oh, you know, she wants people like this, and, you know. So I go there, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, what if this is a lie? What if she's just saying this? You know, what if she's trying to catch me and take me to jail or something like that? I didn't trust it. And then Beth says on her own that she's looking for people like this. So from that moment on, I decided to get on that committee and help people who have been through the same thing that I've been through. You know, I've been sexually exploited, I've been trafficked, I've been all of that. So if I am to be a reflection for somebody, I would want them to make themselves feel pretty. You know, I just want them to be happy with themselves, no matter what they've been through. So my role pretty much is to not change people's lives, but more so help them through what they've been through on their journey to recovery.
That sounds like a powerful role, Symmieona.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So how has the link helped you in your recovery? I love the fact that we call it a recovery journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know that it's not a destination. It's a way of life. And you know how has the link helped you with that?
Well, it's helped me mentally and emotionally for the most part. Every day, you know, before I was working at the link, I used to, you know, expect, you know, a John to knock on my door, I'm gonna hit a stain and do this and do that. You know, that was my everyday life. And then being at the link, it's kind of like, I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't even have to do it anymore because here I have this job now and I'm getting paid for it. And this was literally my first job. And I was like shocked that I even have this job to help people and to talk, you know, advocate for women. You know, so it's helped me remind myself over and over, you can be more than this, you can be more than this, because the people that I had in my life kind of were okay with me being where I was at. They didn't want to see me happy, you know, so when I did start to soar on through my journey, I kind of lost those people in my life, and the link has helped me, you know, maneuver through that, and it's kind of like, it's destiny for the most part. These people that I was holding on to are the people that were holding me back, and I was also holding myself back because, you know, I didn't see any good for myself. So mentally, it was just like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I'm sitting here to help change laws. I am advocating for these girls, and I even help create a place for those girls and boys too. So it's done a lot for me. That's just kind of on the surface.
It sounds like the committee has a lot of different things that you do. So you do some mentoring, you do some. I mean, tell me about how you changed the laws. I think that sounds wonderful.
It was actually, I was in part with the Safe Harbor law, and then we did get it passed for Safe Harbor for all. We went up there, we advocated at the state capitol. I mean, I shedded a few tears because I was happy, I was excited. I mean, here I am changing laws and, you know, sitting up here with all these people who are actually going to listen to me. So we do that, and like I said, I've helped create passageways. We've created the policies around it, the rules, the everything around it. One of the biggest things were, you know, not having cell phones there, because I kind of know you get a cell phone, you kind of going back to nothing, you know. So we kind of wanted to X that out, you know. What else do we do? We do a whole bunch. I mean, we walk for the girls. I mean, we do everything. I mean, we do a lot.
You know, it's really fun to see you be so excited about your ability to make change in yourself and in others, and in the way, you know, people view, you know, what's happened to people that have gone through your struggles. And your just radiant joy is so apparent that it just makes me just so happy for you. Good job. You know, good job to you all too. So
It's all them.
but you know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, it's super difficult to kind of say, admit that you have an issue that you have to deal with. And then, like, how do I deal with this? Where do I go? How do I get help? And so if you could sort of talk about that a little bit on your own journey, you know, to help other people figure out how their journey might begin, I think that would be really beneficial.
Well, I think everybody's journey is different, because you don't really, physically you leave, mentally you're still there, you know, kind of thing. So I don't know if it's inevitable for it to, because I still think of that stuff. The first time I ever went broke, I just thought, dang it, now I gotta do this, you know, but then I called the link and they're there, you know. So I just think that if these girls and boys have people that stand behind them 24/7, don't judge them, not for anything in this world. I mean, they're going to change. Physically, they will leave. They won't have to feel like this is what I have to do. They won't have to feel like that. I mean, you get yourself together, you have people around you that are going to encourage you 24/7. You stay around those kind of people. There's no reason for you to look back because there wasn't anything back there in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, so I just think being on that journey, you have to have people who actually care about you. You have to have people that are going to encourage you. You have to have people that don't judge you for anything that you've done. And whether you've done something wrong, don't know how to use something, they're going to teach you. There's no reason to be made fun of, you know, so they're very fragile people. I mean, the first sight of, you know, the first vibe they feel sometimes being around certain people is just kind of like, you know, they're going to judge me. But once you show them this is an okay place to be, you're good here, then that's just going to be that. Just have them around people that are going to love and support them. Even if they don't know them, love and support them because that's what's needed. They didn't have it when they were younger and growing up, but they need it now.
That's an important message to get out there. One of the things we like to do in these programs is find out how we can get the word out. How could we reach out to other, or maybe that's your job. I mean, I know that your committee has an I Am Priceless campaign.
Yeah.
The poster for that is just incredible. Were you involved in that?
Yeah. We actually made a book on.
A book on.
It was it's gonna be turned into like a binder book kind of thing. The main thing was pretty much from the beginning how you could end up being in the life and how you can get out of it.
It's really important to sort of be able to share, you know, your vulnerability, you know, and let others know that even though they feel really scared and really vulnerable, that there's places to go and people that will help. And, you know, that's the first step is always, you know, you got to make that first step. And so if that first step is through that no wrong door, the people are not going to judge you. They're not going to throw you in jail. They're not going to, you know, they're going to be respectful and they're going to really try and figure out, you know, how they can help. And I think the link has shown, at least to me and Kay, you know, about how they operate relative to, you know, people coming in the door and giving them that 24/7 support that they need in order to make it through all the bumps in their journey.
And see, that's the thing with some other places I've put my trust into, and these were places in Minnesota, like I've been everywhere around this world. And they, you know, there's social workers, there's people, oh, we're here to help you, we're here to do this, we're here to do that, and then they get your parents involved, not even knowing that your parents are the reason you're even out here on the streets doing what you're doing, you know. And here at the link, they actually care about you. They ask you what you want to do. You don't have to have your parents involved because we know and they know it's scary to have them involved sometimes. Some traffickers are the parents. And it's horrible, but it's true. I've seen it. I've seen babies being born into it. I've seen it, and it's really sad. So to have a place like the Link that actually cares and actually care about you and your surroundings, top-notch shelf. Just, it's perfect.
So the poster, the priceless poster, where do you put that? How do you reach the people you need to reach?
Well, we put it everywhere. I tried to get them to put it on toothpaste tubes and everything.
I like it. I can see milk cartons. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like we had it on
She's going to be the new marketing.
I think she's got a
maniac.
Put it on earrings, put it on everything. Just put it on everything. We had it on buses, you know.
Oh, really?
I believe, billboards. We also had it. It was mainly for the Super Bowl kind of thing, you know, because, you know, when big events like that happen, so does sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. So we weren't want to stand for it, and we just wanted to make everybody aware of it because some people, oh, it doesn't happen here. Yeah, right. We're too old to be that naive. You know, so we really wanted to target that, and that's what we did. And boom, I Am Priceless, the name period came because, I mean, you don't put a price on what's really precious. And some of these girls don't even know how precious they are until they leave. You know, so you are priceless. I am priceless.
You absolutely are.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So, Cora, what would you like to add to the conversation? Is there something that we've missed or we've forgotten or we need to emphasize that, you know, relative to what the link does, and Symmieona, is your all-time going for it, girl.
Yes. The link in particular is very youth-led, and this is the reason why. I mean, they have the lived experience. They're the ones that are the voices in this work, and we're only here to be the ones that are side by side and be the support system and be the people that are there to walk with them and beside them through their journey of recovery and becoming a survivor. So Simi obviously is, very articulate and knows how to speak on her experience working with the link, and there's not much more I can add there. I mean, she's our go-to. So.
Well, I am so glad that I guess I found you. In my trying to figure out, how can we present this issue to people, and to have people understand about how they can just make the call, and that's the first step. And even though it's a scary first step, it's a supportive call, that they'll be supported, by the link, and will be encouraged to do what they need to do and how the link can help them in their recovery. So, I mean, I just think this was a wonderful first step for us. Yeah. To find and applaud the state of Minnesota for enacting the law that makes this all happen, because this is a great first step relative to helping people move beyond that life they think they have to live.
Right. I would encourage people to continue to learn and grow and find the information, whether that's through the link or not. Awareness is a key to recovery and ending this and ending sexual exploitation.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peg, and thank you, Cora and Symmieona, for providing the important information that you shared today. To find out more about the work of the link, you can go to their website, thelinkmn.org. There's a resource list of groups and agencies helping teens and their families in our area on the screen. It's not a comprehensive list. We continue to add to it, but it is a start for people needing help in finding resources out here in our western suburbs. Programs like this are just part of the mission of the League of Women Voters. For nearly 100 years, we've been encouraging people to get informed, to get involved, and to vote. We hold public meetings on issues important to our communities. We put on candidates' meetings and register voters. We take positions and we lobby at the local, state, and national levels. We're nonpartisan, which means we don't support political parties or candidates. We invite you to join us. To find out more about our league, you can go to our website, lwvsouthtonka.org. Finally, I'd like to thank the Lake Minnetonka Communications Commission for the opportunity to present this program, and thank you for watching.